A lot of things in life make me cringe. Seeing my dad post political opinions on Facebook. Hearing a Canadian say, sorry. But nothing makes me cringe more than when a speaker walks to the front of the room with a thick stack of papers and buries their head down while reading the speech word for word like it's kindergarten read aloud, all while being barely audible over the crinkle of loose leaf. And if I just described your last speech, then sorry, you gotta memorize that. This is where I come in. As a speech competitor, I won the Collegiate National Championship in extemporaneous speaking, where you are literally required to memorize an entire speech in about 10 minutes. Since then, I've been coaching speech for over 8 years, and in my time as a coach, I have developed a system to memorize any speech in just 4 easy steps. And warning, it will work almost like magic. So without any further ado, let's get into it. The first step is to rehearse your speech by reading it out loud directly from the page. Now, if your speech has been fully written out word for word, this literally means reading every single word out loud from the page. However, if you just have an outline, if say you were doing extemp, then just read out each part of your outline out loud. Now, it's crucial that you read these out loud. Out loud. Not just in your head, not just moving your lips, but actual sound waves coming out of your face. Why? Well, one difference between memorizing a speech and memorizing, say, facts for a test is that the end product of a speech needs to be delivered out loud in front of an audience. In fact, speeches get 0 bonus points for how they're written on the page. All that matters is what you ultimately say. Now, in this step, by practicing out loud, we are training our brains and our vocal cords to produce the actual words we will be saying. Think of it like a tennis player practicing a forehand. Do you think she'll get better by thinking really hard about how she's going to go through the motion? Maybe she sits in her chair and kind of does this with her arm? No, what she does is she goes out on a court with her tennis racket and goes through the actual motion of her forehand. It's the same thing with memorizing a speech. Now, this step gets repeated differently based on how much time you have to memorize. If you have like 10, 15 minutes or less, like an extemp, then just 1 or 2 times is sufficient. However, if you have a few days or even a week, then I would recommend reading your speech last thing before bed every night and first thing in the morning every morning when you wake up. This will ultimately encode the speech in your brain, and it will work almost like magic when it comes to memorization. Now let's move on to step 2. Now, the next step is to test what you know. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to memorization is that lots of students think they have none of their speech memorized and that they need to start from scratch. That's simply not true. If you did your job in step 1, you will actually already know a good chunk of your speech directly from memory. So in step 2, what you're going to do is turn your page over and try to recite from memory as much of your speech as you possibly can. Every time you mess up, you're going to turn your speech back over, underline or highlight the portion you messed up, turn your page back over again, and continue going. You will be amazed by how much of your speech you already know. And you're going to do this throughout your entire speech until you have an entire list of things highlighted. Now you're ready for step 3. Step 3 is a repeat of step 1, except this time you're only practicing out loud the highlighted lines. You're going to read out loud each highlighted line 5 times. And once you've done that for every single highlighted line, turn your page back over and see how much of your speech you can get through from memory. You will be amazed that more and more of your speech gets memorized as you go through this process, until eventually nothing is highlighted anymore. Once you can perform every line in your speech from memory, you're ready for step 4. Step 4 is where you practice your entire speech out loud once without looking at the page. Now, by now, you should be able to deliver all or most of the speech without any lines missing. However, if you're still messing up a couple lines or forgetting to say them, then chances are they're not the best lines for your speech. Look, we memorize things that we can say naturally. And so if you have a line in your speech that's really unnatural or not how you would say it, then ultimately you're going to mess it up after the memorization process. This is actually a hidden benefit. If you flub a line, keep the flubbed line as your ultimate final delivered line. That's because that line is likely more natural than how it was written. Same thing with skipping over a line. If you continually skip over a line after steps 1 through 3, then chances are it was an unnatural line to begin with, and you can just chuck it from your final product. Once you've rehearsed this speech out loud, then congratulations, you have a fully memorized speech. Crazy, right? Now, one important caveat, memorization is a lot like training a muscle, in that the more you do it in general, the better you will get at it later. So if this is your first time trying to memorize a speech, this process might be a bit tougher than if it's your 100th time. But I promise if you continue working through this process, you will be able to memorize any speech with ease very quickly. Now, if you'd like a more in-depth guide on how to memorize speeches quickly and easily, I have an ebook on my website at justincooperspeech.com that goes over the entire memorization process. Additionally, if you'd like some one-on-one help with your speech, I do offer coaching and speech reviews. The link is in the description. And last, as always, remember to speak up.